So thinking about what inspired me to start spanDNA and what then became the idea for the summit, spanDNA stands for something. So the S and the P are starting point, and the A and the N is an adinkra symbol. The adinkra symbol is called Akoma Ntoaso. When you think of adinkra, people might think of the bird with its head turning back. It's a symbol that comes from Ghana, and it's called adinkra, and there are many of them. And Akoma Ntoaso is representative of linked hearts. So the logo for spanDNA is this symbol, linked hearts. And oftentimes people will think, oh, Adwoa's just into the DNA testing. I'm actually inspired by people, connections, relationships, and the DNA tests facilitated that. And so spanDNA was using our DNA as a starting point to make these connections so that we can link our hearts. And that was basically the starting point. Then also, I'm starting from Ghana, because when people take DNA tests around the world, it is really hard to be a descendant of enslaved Africans and try to find a point of connection in Africa. Most Africans are not taking DNA tests. First of all, they think they know who their family is, or because there's this security of feeling like I know where I come from, there's no need to search. You're not looking if you don't know you've lost something. When I got my DNA results, it came into my face that these are people who are a part of me, I'm a part of them, and we don't even know. I found that every city and town my parents have lived in Europe and North America, I have found DNA matches with histories tied to the transatlantic slave trade in every place I've lived. Black people, white people, indigenous people, because that's how we define people in America. And so I realized I need to do something different with genealogy. I need to do something different with DNA. Most people will take a DNA test or build their family trees to archive what makes them feel special, to find a sense of identity. And I think spanDNA is about being open to possibilities, rejecting false dichotomies, doing something in partnership, only doing it with family and friends, a support system, the way our society is meant to function. That genealogy shouldn't be this thing you do in a dark room sitting like in front of your computer with your body falling apart because you went down a rabbit hole. But this is an opportunity for us to manifest truth. A truth that is deeper than anything that's been written, a truth that draws from many sources, spiritual sources. I call it our spiritual DNA too, because we've inherited spiritual qualities and capacities and strengths. And so this was an opportunity for me to take science and religion and bring it together. And that's what inspired spanDNA after I took my first DNA test in 2017. So at first it was just, finding people. But then after talking to hundreds and hundreds of people on these DNA databases, like sending a message on Ancestry, MyHeritage, Living DNA, Family Tree DNA, all these different places, I realized this is kind of weird. Wouldn't you think it's weird if someone reached out to you and said, I'm this random person from Africa, and it's almost like getting those spammy emails where people are like, I'm a Nigerian prince and I'm your relative and send me some money. I'm not asking anyone for money, but most people who get a message from me might say something to the effect of, well, we share less than 1% DNA with each other. I'm a descendant of enslaved Africans. I will never find my connection to Africa. And that's why this summit is happening, because I'm trying to do what people think is impossible, finding the connections that we've given up on trying to find, and that any of us can do it. We just have to have the imagination and the willingness to act with scientific evidence, but also relationships, conversations. That's why we're having the summit now. It needs to happen now. When you look at the world around us, we need to take charge of finding the truth. And I believe that when we start from the pupil of the eye, Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, talked about people of African descent with a metaphor, the pupil of the eye, that truth is reflected through the pupil, the function scientifically of the pupil, that light comes through. So what does it look like when we start with the stories of people of African descent? What truth will we find? What light can shine to illuminate realities that have been hidden? Let's start here.